Yeah.
How's your back doing?
How's my back doing? Not so bad. I saw you at another tour stop.
Yes, you
right?
did.
Where did I see you before?
You saw me at Anderson's.
At Anderson's in
I was
in
the one
Portland.
with the annoying little camera phone that had the
you're
light
several
going.
thousand miles from the last place I saw.
You didn't notice the semi out back.
No. Oh, that's right. You're the truck driver. Awesome. Yeah. Nice to see you. Yeah. No, my back is still crappy, but I got a massage this morning, which is good. I've got bad sciatica. I wouldn't wish it on a dog. Other questions apart from my back? If you see me looking like I got ants in my pants, I'm just trying to get the like L3 through 5 moving. So
you're not actually dancing to techno in your head.
yeah, no, I'm not dancing to the techno in my head. The voices are telling me to move my hips. But yeah, I had a hot soak and an ice pack and a. Oh, and you've got a hard copy. Good man. Of the it's the beach edition. Oh, very good. Very nice. Any other questions?
I'm wondering if, one of the things you're really known for is the work you do with Creative Commons and so on. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if you think that can be broadened. You think it's a format that works for authors across genre and across, if it's something you'd advocate for everybody?
Right. So the question is, would Creative Commons releases be something I'd advocate for everybody? Well, I think that there's at least 3 dimensions here. The first one is just the reality, right? The reality is that things that people like, they'll copy. It's a fact of life in the 21st century. Making it harder for people to copy things with computers is like making water less wet. It's wildly implausible that we'll experience some kind of steep decline in the ease with which people copy things. So whatever it is you do, if it takes as a supposition that copying is hard and will get harder, it's if it relies on that, it's broken, right? It's going to stop working soon, or you're going to discover that restricting copying wasn't as important as you thought it was. But one way or the other, copying is just a fact of life. So there's the kind of, what else are you going to do, right? If you're not going to allow people to share your stuff, what else are you going to do? Because they will share it if they like it, because that's a fact of life, because we live in the era of copying. But then there's a couple other dimensions. And I'm trying to remember what they were, because I formulated them both in my head as you were asking the question, and they fell out of my buffer. Well, okay, so that's one dimension. Another dimension is whether or not your medium has latent in it something that's scarce and physical that a digital good can make money from, right? So. There's the traditional mechanism for making money off of entertainment media is that you have a work that becomes notorious through some means, right? Because it's like widely known, and you have some physical or scarce instantiation of the work, whether that's a disc or cinema or a book or a sculpture or a something or a performance, and you sell the performance off the back of the notoriety of the idea, right? The thing is that ideas have become a lot closer to goods, because we now have this idea that we can buy and sell ideas as well in the form of downloads, and so I think that to the extent that you can identify physical things that people want that can trade off the notoriety of your of the idea, of the underlying idea, there's something there. Now, maybe that there are people who work in different creative fields whose primary output doesn't lend themselves to it, right? Who aren't great performers, for example. If they work in music, they're studio musicians, and they have a hard time adjusting to it. And I think that there's kind of 2 ways of thinking about that. The first is tough, right? I mean, technology giveth and technology taketh away. Back in the 30s, when the vaudevillians saw the encroachment of radio and phonograms, they said, what do you mean you want me to be like a mere clerk and sit in a back room and produce material that you take out to my audience? I'm a charismatic, I'm a performer, I do something as old and as holy as that first story told in front of the first fire. You have no business telling me how to earn a living. And of course, they all ended up driving taxis and flipping burgers, right? And then their spiritual descendants 70 years later are saying, what do you mean I have to go out and be a performer, right? I'm not a trained monkey, I'm a white-collar worker. I labor indoors in my studio. When I'm done, I slide the work under the door and give it to some bourgeois man of commerce to go out and introduce to my audience. You have no business telling me what I need to do for a living, right? So these are the kind of the this is the kind of tough noogies version of what do you do about copyright, because the thing to note there is that in both cases we didn't get less music, we just got different people making it. And you know, the purpose of copyright shouldn't be to ensure that some guy who made a living doing something once goes on making a living doing it forever. It should be to ensure that some fraction of artists go on making art so that we can have as much art as we need, right, as we like. So that's the tough noogies argument. There's another argument, which is that that's the market opportunity, right? So if you're a publisher, what the traditional role of the publisher has been to take all the things that writers aren't good at and do them. There are lots of writers who have anti-charisma, right? When they talk about their books seem dumber. So is there a way that publishers can kind of fill in the gap, right? The way that, you know, publishers fill in lots of other gaps for writers. What does it mean to help writers impress their audiences with performance or with some other scarce thing that has some inherent limits that people will pay for? And you know, I think that there's probably a lot to be said there. There's probably a lot of businesses waiting to be discovered. But I think the most important thing is we don't know what else we're going to do apart from Creative Commons. And at least with Creative Commons, the copying that takes place in the tent. So the people who do the copying are doing so because you've enlisted them to be part of your business plan. They're not doing it because they think that you're kind of either kind of without thinking about it, or because they think you're some kind of horrible dinosaur who doesn't understand the internet and they're going to show you. And so having people who are your readers on your side is better than not having them on your side. You know, there's that famous Joe Lewis quote. You know, he's kind of an anti-government activist. He was a civil rights activist, but he still enlisted to fight World War II. And they said, well, if you're opposed to the American government and its interests, why are you going to go overseas and fight for America in Germany? And he said, well, there's plenty wrong with the world, but Hitler won't help, right? So like there are lots of problems that artists have, but having their audiences hate them and having to fight a kind of continuous like grinding land war over whether or not your works will be copied in the age of computers is not going to improve any artist's life. So I don't know if that answers your question. Yeah?
I've written a couple of stories at this point about operating in the computer game worlds, World of Warcraft. How much actually playing those games and interacting with those games do you do?
How much do I interact with MMOs and with games? So I am like most people in their late 30s. I'm someone who's played games all his life, right? I started with Pong when I was like 8 and continue to play video games today. It's kind of, you can't avoid it, right? So, and the interesting thing about that is that I've played literally, like you probably, every generation of games ever. I don't think we actually appreciate this and how profound and weird it is to have gone through that many generations of technology, of iteration in a medium in a single lifespan. It's kind of like, you know, the first time you saw a painting, it was being daubed on the wall of a cave. And the most recent time you saw a painting, it was being silk screened on the side of a 40-story building, right? I mean, it's like to have lived through all those generations is amazing. So I've osmosed a lot of game through my life. And I played a lot of MMOs while writing this book and while researching this book. But my primary source of expertise about MMOs is my wife, who's a serious gamer. So she played Quake on the national English team. She was an internationally ranked Quake player. And she now commissions video games for Channel 4, which is one of the public broadcasters in the UK where we live. And they're really cool games. So Channel 4 has this mandate to reach 13 to 18-year-olds with public service material, and 13 to 18-year-olds increasingly don't watch TV. So they pulled all the budget off of their TV and given it to my wife to make video games with. And so she's commissioned some really cool games. She won Best Game, Best Educational Game at South by Southwest this year. One of her recent games is really cool. It's called Smokescreen, and it's a kind of online scavenger hunt that simulates stalking teenagers with social networks. And it's for teenagers to show them how little atoms of information that you leave scattered around the internet, when aggregated, can become really detrimental to you and how they never disappear. The most recent game she's just announced is called Private. It's a reproductive health game for 14 to 16-year-old boys. It's a side-scrolling combat game set in genitals. pretty cool. So that was my primary source of video game expertise. A typical evening in the Doctorow Taylor household is, we put the kid to bed. She's 2.5. We put her to bed around 7:30, and then my wife kills zombies for 2 hours, shouting obscenities into her headset while I blog and ask nosy questions. So. All right. So if everybody wants to get seated, who wants to get seated, we can start.